Welcome back to Second Chapter Careers, the podcast where I talk to people who dare to hit reset on their professional lives and live to tell the tale. Today's episode is a bit different. There's no guest, there's no backstory, there's nothing else to share except for my story. And I'll be honest, I've been dodging this episode for a while. I ask people all the time to open up, to share their stories, to share their journeys, their struggles, their successes. And somehow, I've managed to avoid doing it myself for the past 6 months I've had this podcast. Pretty impressive, right? But it's time. So, here's my story. I hope it gets you thinking about your own. Before I jump in, let's rewind a bit. Picture a younger me, a classic overachiever. Honor roll, debate team, basketball, candy striper, youth leader, you name it, I did it. Except for choir. That one was really never the right fit. I always knew I wanted to go to college, but I never really knew what I wanted to do afterwards. I figured out that while I was enjoying the college experience, I'd figure it all out. Spoiler alert, that did not happen. My father suggested that I take a bunch of random courses in college, and eventually I'll figure out what I love. I thought that was great advice, until I fell in love with philosophy. And since that is not exactly the most useful major, I opted for the second least useful major, political science. Unfortunately, by the time I finished college, I still didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I did what any respectable young adult would do. I went to graduate school. Once again, I figured that by the time I was done, I'd have it all figured out. And once again, that didn't happen. By the time I was done with graduate school, I had 2.5 kids, 6 years of higher education under my belt, and no actual career plans. So, I sought help from someone who specialized in helping immigrants to Israel find their first job in a new country. She asked me what I wanted to do with my life. I responded, "Of course, I want to save the world. Isn't that why people study politics?" She looked at me with a little side eye and she said, "And what can you actually do?" I almost gasped. I almost fell off my chair. But in that moment, I realized a few things. Firstly, I never stopped to ask myself that question, for real. I did a lot in my educational career. I had a lot of achievements, a lot of accomplishments, and a lot of success. But what was I actually good at? I never stopped to think about it. Secondly, throughout my educational career, and in the years prior while I was in high school, nobody ever asked me that question. Nobody stopped to help me figure out what type of career trajectory would match my skill set, let alone my interests. I told the woman I was a decent writer, so she helped me get a job in marketing, which ultimately became the launchpad for a long and successful career. But here's the other thing they don't tell you in college. Just because you're successful in a career doesn't mean you're happy. I'll talk more about that later. For nearly 20 years, I worked in marketing for tons of interesting projects: e-commerce, finance, health tech, high tech, nonprofits. I was blessed to have jobs that allowed me the flexibility I needed as a mom. I was also blessed to be able to travel the world. I made millions of dollars in deals. I built many websites that I'm proud of till this day. I worked with amazing people who became lifelong mentors and friends. But throughout that time, something was missing. I had the salary, I had pride in my work, I had a great work-life balance. What I didn't realize I was missing was meaning. It was easy to ignore that in the early years because I was so busy I didn't have time to think about it. But as the years passed, I secretly started asking dangerous questions like, what if I don't really want this? What if I'm meant for something else? What if being successful is not always enough? One day, I realized that I couldn't unsee what I wanted. I wanted meaning. I wanted impact. I wanted the elusive something else. I didn't have a 10-step plan. I didn't even have a 2-step plan. I just had this tiny, niggling, persistent thought. What if I make a change? At first, I tried to ignore it. I filled my calendar with things like important meetings. I told myself I was being practical and that I should be satisfied with what I have. But the truth is, I was just scared. Scared to abandon a long career that had been so good to me. Scared to say it out loud. I think I want more. Scared to believe I deserved more. Another thing that happened over time is that my kids grew up. And as they grew up, I realized it wasn't just me who didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. They didn't either. And neither do hundreds of gap year students who have joined us for Shabbat meals over the years. I realized almost in an instant that 20 years after my own college experience, there is still a gaping hole in the career selection process in Israel, in America, and probably everywhere. Young people have no clue how to choose the right career. And middle-aged people, unfortunately, still don't know how to escape the wrong career. I decided it's time to change things. I knew it wasn't just enough to have my own career journey. I needed to be trained to help others on theirs. So I became a certified career coach. I spent hours and hours learning techniques and psychology theories, studying personalities, innate skills, different career types, different career options, trends, salaries, and learning how to help people find their professional passions and their innate skills, and to distill what they want to get out of their professional lives. Something that will make them excited to get up in the morning and go to work. In the process, I launched this podcast with the goal of sharing other stories to inspire everyone out there who is afraid to make the change. Everyone has a second chapter in them. Most people just don't give themselves the permission to write it. This show became a way to amplify those voices, not in the LinkedIn polish, look how successful I am versions, but the real, raw, sometimes messy, sometimes still in progress versions. Here are a few truths I've learned from the field, both from life and from learning. Your title is not your identity. It might feel like it, but everyone is more than their job description. I promise. Second, you don't have to have it all figured out to take the first step. Honestly, no one does. If they say they do, they're probably lying, or perhaps a little bit delusional. Third, fear is a compass. If something scares you and excites you, that's probably the thing you should be doing. Stop being scared and stop ignoring it. Fourth, burnout is not a badge of honor. I used to think that being busy meant I mattered. I was important to my job. I was important to my coworkers, that they needed me all the time. It turns out being alive, living your life, and being fulfilled is a much better measure of honor and success. Fifth, there's no right age to reinvent yourself. Second chapters are not just for people in midlife crisis. They're for anyone with the guts to ask, what if? I see it all the time with college students who are nearly at the end of their degree and they realize they've already made a mistake. Why continue on the trajectory that you know is not right? It's never the wrong time to answer that question positively. And lastly, people at every age, every single age, should stop to really consider what they want before committing to a career or to an expensive degree. I get too many calls from people who are knee-deep in tuition and discover they aren't happy with the path that they've chosen. Likewise, I speak all the time to mid-career people who are knee-deep in careers they never really wanted in the first place. Life would be so much better if we made the right decisions the first time around. Or, at the very least, the second. So, where does that leave us? For me, this podcast, this community, this conversation is just the beginning. I want to keep exploring these stories, not just because they're interesting, not just because I find them inspiring and I hope others will find them inspiring, but because they're necessary. We need new models of what a career can look like, especially, but not only, for women. We need to normalize the fact that people change, our interests change, our needs change, our lifestyle changes. We need to stop pretending that the 40-year job arc is the only way to create career success. And for you, if you're listening or watching and thinking, Maybe it's time? Consider this your nudge. Not to burn it all down today or even tomorrow, but to start asking better questions and listening to your inner voice. It's time to get curious. It's time to see what's out there and how new things can make you happy. That's it. That's my story. Now you know why I started Second Chapter Careers and why I love being a career coach. You also know why I care so much. Next week, we're back to our regularly scheduled programming with someone else in the hot seat. But if you're sitting out there with a story of your own, or maybe you're stuck without a story, reach out. It's time that we talked.